Hello guys, welcome back to another Wizard101 video. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys some spell ideas that I've made. And some of the spells you guys have probably already seen that a lot of people requested for the schools. But without further ado, we are going to be looking at 4 set of spells for Storm and Death, 2 spells for balance, 3 spells for life, and 3 spells for myth. And then last is going to be 2 sun enchantment spells. So I honestly hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and leave a like, leave a comment. And without further ado, let's go right into it. that was it, guys. Those were all of the spells that I have made. I hope you guys liked some of the spells. I know some of the spells that I've made aren't going to please everybody, but I tried my best while making these spells to keep in mind that the combos and the other enchantments that are in that we have, like Epic, Colossus, I kept that in mind. So I didn't want to make the damage on these spells too high. And I've also kept in mind the number of pips that these spells require. And another thing that I kept in mind is just the combinations that are currently being used in the game. And that's about it. You know, I honestly tried my best not to make these spells broken with the damage it does, the number of pips, the utility they have. And some of you guys might be questioning about some of the spells, like I guess I'll start with Storm. So I decided to give Storm a 5 pip hitting spell that hits all enemies. And the reason I wanted to give them a spell like that, because Tempest is extremely good. You know, Tempest is awesome. But the thing I hate about Tempest is that it wastes all of the Storm's pips. It's a good thing and it's also a bad thing. But I honestly wanted to give Storm a spell that they could do a decent amount of damage for 5 pips and it hits everybody. That way they don't have to go and waste all of their pips on a Tempest. And then the other Storm you guys might find a little bit interesting is the healing spell that I gave Storm, which is Electrical Charge. Now, I feel like Storm can honestly benefit from this spell because Healing Current, it's an okay, you know, healing spell for Storm, but I honestly think that for Storm they need something much better to keep them alive. So I made Electrical Charge in a way so that it boosts up not every single round, but every other round it would give them a little bit of health, keeping them alive. Because I've noticed a lot of Storms, even when they go first, they end up losing to Fire Wizards, Ice Wizards, and Myth Wizards, so even Life Wizards. So I honestly think Storm has very other schools have an advantage over Storm because of health and resistance. So I think the healing spell that I made for Storm can really be beneficial. Next up, I'm going to talk about life. So for life spells, I feel like you know, when I was making these spells for life, I honestly wanted to give life damage spells, a little bit more damage spells, because honestly I feel like life, they've been bombarded with a lot of healing spells, and that's okay. I mean, they are life, that's what they're known for, you know, staying alive in battle, healing themselves back up. But I kind of wanted to open the door to a lot of life wizards. So instead of you know, putting the outgoing and incoming healing like a lot, and like the critical a lot, and just spamming a bunch of healing spells, I kind of want to open the door to life wizards so that they have a chance and opportunity to actually hit So I gave them a spell called Reptilian, and it does give a damage bubble, but the damage on the spell is pretty low. Again, I try to balance that spell. I don't want it to be too OP. And I also gave them Evergreen Turtle, which is also a damage spell, because I've noticed that Life doesn't have any damage spells that cost 7 pips, so maybe they might want to use that one. And then I gave them the most favorite spells that a lot of Life Wizards been asking, and I honestly feel like this needs to happen sometime soon in the game, because Life, they have a pretty hard time farming in Wintertusk. I know that there is a gem, the Morgan gem, that they can use to farm, and it costs 4 pips. But I honestly feel like the carnivorous vines that I made would be beneficial, and I honestly hope that one day Life is able to gain a spell that hits everybody for 5 pips. And then I made the death spells. So you guys probably seen werewolves, and the reason why I made the spell werewolves is because I want there to be an alternative for Deer Knight. I know a lot of people they use Deer Knight, but some people just want to have a based hit. They don't like the overtime on Deer Knight. Neither do I, to be honest. I'm not really a big fan of Deer Knight because it takes a while to do the rest of the damage on the overtime. So I kind of want a spell for death that just has a base damage, and that's what I made. It also gives a nice utility on the side, a side effect, which is 10% weakness to all enemies. So I think that's pretty nice to have. And then I'm gonna talk to you guys about the 6 pip death spell, which is called Zombie Horde. And usually what that spell is about, it's just a plain simple hitting spell that does 650 damage. And the reason why I made that spell is because I also want there to be an alternative for death. Like I know we have right now a death spell that costs 6 pips, and it is called Wrath. And the problem with me is you know how there's Headless Horseman and Vampire, and a lot of Death Wizards like myself, we love Headless Horseman because it does a crazy amount of damage, and that's basically what it just does. It just has the damage. As for Vampire, you know, Vampire has a side effect to it, so it does a decent amount of damage, but because it gives you health back, it kind of reduces the damage. And we kind of, like Death Wizards, we don't really care about getting health back. We care more about, you know, putting in a lot of damage to our opponents. So that's why I made it's kind of an alternative. If you don't want to use Wrath because of the side effect, it reduces the damage, hopefully they can make Zombie Horde, which does 650 damage, a reality in the game. So that's one of the reasons why I made that death spell. Next up, I want to talk to you guys about the myth spell. It's called Glooming Elk. And the reason why I decided to do Glooming Elk, if you guys already saw it, was because a lot of myth wizards, they complain that they need some sort of healing spell. Like they're just a little bit eager to get some sort of healing. So Glooming Elk, what it does is it's basically like a Minotaur, and it gives, like, for the damage that you do on the enemy, it gives 50% of that damage back to, it splits that 50% damage that you do on the enemy, it gives that health to you. So yeah, it's basically like Vampire and Minotaur combined. That's what Glooming Elk is. So I feel like Myth, they'll secretly op. They don't really need that many spells, attack spells, because they already have a decent amount of spells that they use under their belts that makes them obsolete. And the next spells that I'm going to be talking about is I feel like I forgot what to mention one. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention back the storm. There is a storm spell that I've made. It is called Cloudburst. Now that is another essential spell that a lot of storms need in PvP, but also in PvE. Cloudburst is probably going to be one of the first, if they do integrate it into the game, it will be the first overtime damage spell that we actually have. Right now we have Storm Elf and Storm Hound as treasure cards, but we really need Storm. We need an overtime damage spell, because it's hard when you just have single hits. You know, you have a lot of storm spells that don't really have good side effects on the spells, and it just does damage. It's kind of hard to pass through the like if you're going against a fire or an ice or a balance. It's kind of hard when they just start spamming a bunch of shields. So they really need Storm really needs a overtime damage. Now I know you guys are kind of wondering about the sun enchantments. For the sun enchantments, I did give them 2 pips because I feel like they're a little bit too op to be put in the game, so I kind of wanted to balance it out and make them cost 2 pips to enchant. So if you have a spell and you're gonna enchant and it costs 4 pips and you're gonna use a sun enchantment to enchant that spell, it is now gonna cost you 6 pips. And I feel like for what the enchantments give and what they do, like let's say you use Fiery Fist, which gives 15% pierce and 200 damage. That's pretty like, it's hard. It's pretty powerful enchantment. So I made it 2 pips so I could balance it out. Also, I made Halo, which is a sun enchantment, and usually what that does is it protects your damage bubble from being removed from your enemy or your opponent. After that, it removes it, and the next time your enemy tries to replace your bubble, then he's gonna be able to. It just gives you 1 protection from removal, and it's pretty. I think it's pretty OP, the sun enchantment. And the next spell that I'm gonna be talking to you guys, it's gonna be the last spell that I'm gonna be telling you guys. It is called Rhinerian. Now, Rhinerian is a balance spell that I made. It's an overtime. It's the first ever overtime balance spell that we see. I mean, there is a Steel Giant, but Steel Giant is a treasure card. It's currently in the game. It's hard to find. You will be lucky if you find it in the bazaar, but for now, that's the only overtime damage we have, Steel Giant, and it's a treasure card. But I feel like as we progress to level up, you know, we're champions at the moment, level 130. That's the max cap, and I feel by now we should start seeing storms have we should start seeing like spells like storms having an overtime spell. We should see life having a spell that gives them a damage bubble. We should see storms having we should see deaths having stronger spells. We should see balance having overtime damage spells, and so on and so forth. So we should just start seeing a bunch of like all of these schools have new utilities. So that's what I made. Rhinerian, it's a balance spell. It hits everybody for a decent amount of damage, and it does overtime. And before I wrap this video up and finish this, I just wanna, I know some of you guys are asking like, why did I not make any spells for like any big major spells for balance or for fire, for ice? The reason why I didn't make a lot of spells for balance is because I feel like balance is already OP. I mean, considering the fact that they can bend the rules of PvP, like they can mana burn, destroy you pips, they could destroy and pop and do damage, a lot of damage when you cast an infel or a fortify. They just do a lot of damage and they remove it. They can also reshuffle, they can donate pips to the allies. So balance at the moment, they can pretty much bend the rules of PvP. So which makes them op. They already have a healing spell. So I kind of didn't want to give them any more spells, because that would just make them overpower. As for ice already has a lot of health, a lot of resistance, and they do a crazy enough amount of ice damage, because they already have a 40% blade. So I honestly feel like ice is very defensive when it comes to spells, and they have a great amount of utility spells at their disposal. So I didn't want to make them or give them any spells because they're already OP. As for fire is just the thing about fire is they already have a lot of combos. They have a lot of just way too many combinations. Very strong school. So I honestly didn't want to give them a spell, like any more other spells. They already have Meteor, they have Raging Bull, they have Rampage, Brim, Krampus. So they have a good amount of spells, and they also have that Aquila spell. I don't know the name of it, but it costs 5 pips. It does a decent amount of fire damage, and it casts a fire bubble. So fire is just OP. They don't really need any spells to give them. But yeah, I hope you guys liked all of these spells that I've made. If so, leave a comment. If you guys think that some of the utility spells that I've made are a little bit broken, just let me know. But just keep in mind that these are just ideas. These are just potential ideas that, you know, KI can take into consideration. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's it. There's not really much to say. I don't want to make this video too long for you guys. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and check out my next video. Anyway guys, leave a like, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.